A surge of cancer breakthroughs just unveiled this year is so profound that they are rewriting what we thought we knew about disease, aging, and how to stop it. This will be remembered as the year everything changed: cancer, dementia, heart disease, all traced back to one overlooked culprit: your mitochondria. And cancer? The story blows wide open. Metabolism, the engine of life. The stomach breaks food down. The gallbladder releases bile to break down fat. The gut turns it into fuel. The liver regulates blood sugar. The pancreas controls energy flow. The lungs pull in oxygen. That oxygen is the spark. It drives ATP production, the body's energy currency. The heart never rests. Every beat demands fuel. Fat, glucose, and even ketones are burned to generate ATP nonstop. And the brain? It's the hungriest of all. It devours about 20% of the body's energy with no backup supply. If the chain breaks, energy shuts down. Cancer is not just a genetic roll of the dice. For decades, we were told cancer lived in your genes. If your dad had it, you were doomed. But here is the truth that has been hiding in plain sight. Cancer doesn't start in your DNA. It starts in your mitochondria, microscopic engines that set the rhythm that determines whether you thrive, adapt, or break down. In healthy cells, oxygen fuels them like a perfect conductor leading an orchestra. Precise, balanced, flawless. Every signal, every spark in perfect rhythm, a living network wired for harmony. But when they are damaged, they flip an ancient survival switch called fermentation, a swampy process closer to brewing in a mold-choked basement, forcing cancer to gorge on sugar and glutamine just to stay alive. That binge fuels runaway growth like gasoline on a fire. That is why tumors light up on PET scans. They are sugar addicts. Before the scan, doctors inject a tiny radioactive sugar tracer into your blood. Normal cells sip it. Tumors guzzle it. On the screen, they glow like neon hotspots. You give up sugar. You think you've cut off the cancer's fuel. Not so fast. Emerging studies released this year show a surprising shift in what we know about how cancer grows. Tumors can rewire themselves, adapting their metabolism to burn glutamine for energy, keeping the fire alive. And here's the kicker: glutamine is in everything, even supplements marketed for gut health and fitness. It's also added to processed foods to boost protein content or enhance flavor, which means some of us are feeding cancer without realizing it. And it gets worse. Some tumors don't just use glutamine, they depend on it. More than glucose, more than oxygen. It becomes their lifeline. Tumors gorge on glutamine and spin it into alpha-ketoglutarate, rocket fuel for cancer growth. But here's the paradox. Longevity scientists are now testing that same alpha-ketoglutarate as an anti-aging supplement. Research is showing it may help lower biological age and extend health span, especially in early trials. One study using a CAKG blend, the Regivant Biological Age Study, reported an average 8-year drop in biological age based on DNA methylation testing. But if cancer's already growing inside you, feeding it more AKG could be like tossing gasoline on the fire. Same molecule, opposite outcomes. Context is everything. And here is the new frontier: therapies that don't just starve cancer of sugar. Cutting sugar may put out the wildfire, but glutamine stokes the embers, blowing softly until it sparks again. The new therapies target glutamine inside the mitochondria too, cut off both fuels, and tumors lose their lifeline, leaving you with healthier, more resilient mitochondria. What happens when mitochondria fail? They lose the ability to generate energy from oxygen. They default to fermentation. Cancer cells ferment glucose to survive. They behave like yeast in a beer vat, converting sugar into energy without oxygen. Now here's the twist. That same process happens in healthy cells too, temporarily, like during wound healing or pregnancy, when rapid cell growth is needed. But in cancer, it never stops. Mitochondria don't just fail to regulate energy, they fail to regulate signals. Signals that tell a cell when to divide or when to die. When mitochondria malfunction, those signals go dark, and suddenly that fermentation process never stops, running out of control like a beer vat overflowing. We're not saying food is the only cause of cancer, but it feeds the terrain where cancer takes hold. And in today's world, that terrain has been engineered into every aisle, every menu, every bite. Because cancer doesn't begin with a lump. It begins with mitochondrial dysfunction, the signals that fail, and the damage we ignore. And what weakens those mitochondria? The very engines meant to protect you? Ultra-processed food, constant blood sugar spikes, nutrient-poor calories. The irony is brutal. A system built to extend shelf life has cut human life short, leaving people aging faster than they should. As mitochondria fail, defenses weaken, metabolism misfires, the brain slows, and the foods we continue to eat exacerbate the problem, triggering inflammation, brain fog, gut pain, and fatigue. If you're already experiencing these signs, that's not just a natural part of aging. It's a red flag. Cancer could be next. Every meal is a decision. Fuel your mitochondria or fry them. Because mitochondria don't just power your cells, they govern your entire body. They tell your cells when to repair and when to die. Those decisions keep your body in balance. But when mitochondria can no longer make the call, order unravels. Until one day, the switch flips, the signals vanish, and chaos takes over. Here's the truth. You might not have cancer now, but if your mitochondria are already damaged and what you keep feeding your body keeps tearing them down, what's growing inside you may not have a name yet, but it isn't health. Fix the mitochondria and you cut cancer off at the root, but cancer is only the headline. When mitochondria falter, the damage starts long before. In Part 2, we'll uncover what really happens when your mitochondria slip out of control. Most people will never hear about this because when big food makes you sick, big pharma profits from keeping you that way. And the incentives all line up to make sure that cycle never ends. Part 2 is the blueprint, not just to prevent cancer, but to survive it. If you want the tools to fight back and win, Part 2 is next. Subscribe so you're here when it drops.